years ago, during undergrad, not that long ago, when I was 20 years old, I went to the natatorium of my school with a mermaid tail. I just remember sitting in my car being really nervous because I had my mermaid tail with me, obviously, and I didn't want to drag attention to myself, but I really just wanted somewhere to swim in my tail. And so after a little while, I ended up finally getting the courage to go inside. I specifically picked a time when there would be like very few people there. I just remember like feeling so awkward, like sitting by the lanes and putting on my tail and like struggling to like put it on. I don't know why I have to pick the most absurd hobbies to like. As soon as I went into the water, I felt so much better. Granted, I did not do that many laps because there was so much chlorine, and I usually swim in my tail without goggles, so like it just hurt. But I ended up getting over my fear and I did it, and it was fun for the time being, and then got out and left. Why do I pick this situation to talk about? Well, I feel like that's kind of been the theme for my life. Stupid plane. This year is being comfortable being in uncomfortable situations. I kind of wanted to make a little, I guess, like life update video, since I haven't really made any videos this year. This year was like really tough. I am a firm believer that you have to get in uncomfortable positions. Obviously not too uncomfortable, but you have to be uncomfortable in order to grow. It's a pretty well-known fact. Starting off with my organization, like most people, I don't like public speaking. I definitely don't like speaking in front of a crowd. I do a lot better if it's like just like a few people. It just, in the beginning, when I first start talking, I usually am like really nervous, and then I start like settling into it. So it takes like a good like 5 minutes, maybe a little bit less, of me talking before I'm like kind of level out. But if it's like a huge group of people, I still get really nervous. And when you start a club, you know, obviously you're going to end up being the president most likely, so that means you're going to have to lead things, and that means leading conversation and, you know, being at the front for meetings and stuff. So that's definitely something that's been out of my comfort zone, but I think it's been really beneficial to me because obviously it's helping me grow as a speaker and get out of my shell. I'm also introverted, even though I feel like, at least when I talk to my camera by myself in my room, it doesn't seem that way. Unfortunately, like, the extrovert got sucked out of me as a child. When I moved here to the US when I was really young, I was actually a really social kid, but after reoccurrence over reoccurrence with like just teachers and with my peers kind of just finding me weird and very annoying, I eventually kind of subsided in that and became introverted. I guess I wanted to share like a couple of stuff, or a few things that happened this year, because I don't want to forget them in the future, because I think they're really interesting things that happened that definitely to some extent forwarded my growth as a person. One of those things, so in the same way in medical school that students have like counseling practicals where they have to either talk to a patient or like act like they're talking to a patient or act like they're talking to another doctor, another provider, pharmacy students do that too. And so basically what these counseling sessions are called are OSCEs. I don't remember what it stands for, but I know that OSCE is like the real one, and then TOSCE with the T in front of it is the testing one, like the teaching. It's like the practice session before the real thing. So basically this past semester in the spring, I had a TOSCE, right? We have one every semester. You have a TOSCE and an OSCE every semester. And I just remember the day of TOSCE, I went in not very prepared. I was really exhausted. I think it was somewhere near the end of the semester-ish, and I was just really burnt out. Like, this year was just very draining. And I definitely could have been more prepared for that, but I just was so busy with other things that I just wasn't prepared. I also just get really nervous. Like, so for TOSCEs, this context is necessary, but for TOSCEs, the people who are grading us are usually our own professors, like people you see at the school. But for OSCEs, it's typically, well, it's a stranger, unless for whatever reason you happen to know them on a slim chance. It's either you know, a doctor at some other school or a doctor at a medical facility. It's just not somebody you know, so at least for me, it's more stressful when it's somebody I know who I may interact with afterwards and may judge me. You know, so naturally I tend to do better on OSCE than on TOSCE. Also because, you know, you get the chance to actually practice during TOSCE, right? Anywho, so that context is important because when I came to TOSCE and I was reading through the case, trying to figure out how to present this, because my particular case, I was talking to another resident, or like another fellow pharmacy, not student, but they're called residents. And so I go through the case, I'm like ready to knock on the door to walk in, and I walk in and my mind completely blanks because who do I see? I see the advisor for the club that I'm starting. Literally any sort of like thought about what I was supposed to do completely out the window. I remember walking and being like, hi, being like so nervous. It did not go well at all. I didn't even treat the right problem because again, like every source of knowledge just left my body. It's not even like he did anything like to make me nervous, it was just the fact that it was him that made me nervous. That was definitely a learning experience. I think part of the reason why I was so intimidated is because he has the qualifications for the job that I'm interested in, so like I look up to him and I can tell he's a very smart person. That was one thing that had happened this past semester. Another thing that was definitely a learning experience was, so I was in this organization. I'm not in it, I'm not going to be in it next year, but I had a position within this organization, and I was doing everything that I needed to do, everything that was expected of me. At one point there was this activity that I was supposed to do that was expected of me, and originally I was planning on doing it. But essentially one thing led to another, and I found out that the activity, like the part of what went into it, was something that I just personally didn't agree with and I didn't want to do. I just didn't feel comfortable finishing the thing that was expected of me. And there was no way for me to like predict that that was going to happen because essentially I didn't find out that piece of information. I'm being very vague because I don't want to get into too many details, but I didn't find out the specific piece of information that would stop me from doing the activity until like months after I had already been, you know, working in my position. And so what ended up happening is I ended up telling, you know, my superior, I was like, hey, you know, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I just wanted to let you know in advance so you have time to find someone else that can take over this role. And mind you, I gave them, you know, months in advance notice about this thing. I even offered to give them help to find someone else. In fact, I advised them, hey, this other person is very qualified to do this. Try asking them, you know? And essentially, long story short, is I got dismissed from that position because I refused to do that specific thing. I had done everything else that was expected of me, it was just that one specific thing that I decided to back away from. And that was definitely a learning experience for me because, once again, I don't like starting things. I really hate drama, and almost to a bad extent I will avoid conflict, but I knew that for my personal growth and for my sake, for in the future, that I would need to start standing up for myself now. My camera decided to stop, but anyway, I was saying, at the end of the day, it's a volunteering organization and you shouldn't feel the need to like get on your knees and do everything possible for this organization, because that's just not how it works. I guess it was also eye-opening to really see like how other people handle those types of situations. In that particular situation, I actually had one of my own friends not take my side. It definitely changed my view of him, and I lost some respect for that person as well. As a whole, after talking to several family members, talking to other people about the situation, I'm still glad that it happened because I grew as a person from it, I think. I can approach people with conflict better now, I think. I ended up bringing it up to one of the advisors of that organization, which was also difficult for me because, again, I don't want to have to get other people involved if I don't have to. If the problem can be solved within a couple people, then that's what I want to do, right? But that was another thing that happened this year. I do plan on possibly mentioning that situation in future job questionnaires or whatever. If there's ever a time where I get asked like, oh, what's a situation in which you overcome conflict or whatever else. So I try to look at it that way too, as it's a opportunity for me to discuss something like that in like a job. That's also what my sister told me as well, which was interesting. Oh, I also joined this organization called NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, to present to high schoolers and middle schoolers my story and my personal experience with mental health and mental illness growing up. And that's also been a good opportunity for me to do public speaking as well, because you know, I'm talking in front of a huge group of people. Well, it's not usually like huge, it's like maybe like 20-30 people, but it's still definitely a really good experience, and it allows me to work on being more vulnerable as well in front of people and just being open and honest. Yeah, this year has really just been a year of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. At the beginning of the year, I went on a diet for a month. I'm not gonna lie, like as most students, my diet wasn't the greatest. The first couple of years of pharmacy school, well really starting college, it wasn't the greatest. And I figured it's about time that I did something about it, because this might sound cheesy, but aside for it just doing it for myself and for my own benefit, I also feel like if I'm gonna work as a healthcare provider, it's not really fair for me to like make these recommendations for people to either change their diet or exercise if I don't do it myself, right? Like nobody likes a hypocrite, and it's really common for healthcare providers to not take care of themselves. And I feel like patients will take you more seriously if they see you doing the things you recommend, right? It's a very simple concept, so I've been working on that as well. As I was saying, my first month of the year, I did a diet. After that, I decided to just switch over to living a more active lifestyle while also trying to generally eat better. I haven't been the greatest at it, but I do try. I am definitely proud of that because I've been going consistently to the gym for about 4 months now. It'll be 5 months at the end of May. During school, it was more like 3-4 times a week, but now that it's summer and I don't have anything until my rotation in a few weeks, I've been going essentially 5-6 times a week and taking like a day or two of rest. I definitely feel like I've gotten stronger. I've honestly just been mostly focusing on school and working on myself, trying to be a better human being. It's been like 3 years since I've dated someone, so that's another thing too. You know, I'm chilling, you know, God has a plan, but sometimes, you know, it gets lonely out here. I'm thinking about potentially in the future doing like a couple like gym vlogs, but I'm still mustering up the courage to like actually film in the gym with like this camera that I have. Because I don't know if y'all have noticed, but this is a much nicer camera than the one I had before. I have like a legitimate Canon camera. It's like an actual photography camera and not like a video camera. Like my whole tripod and my camera setup that I have right now, like it's like huge. And even though I've been going for a few months, like I still get nervous. Like I don't want people staring at me, you know. I just want to do my thing and move on. But here I am, always picking the most absurd hobbies to have. I look forward to seeing how much I grow. I feel like since the beginning of this channel, so much has changed because I've had my YouTube channel since I was like a child, and I don't think I could have ever imagined how much I would change and how much I would know by now. And I remember when I was like in high school and I was like, oh, like pharmacy school, like yeah, that's future Alina, like that's never gonna happen. I never wrapped my head around like the idea of actually getting there and getting through it. It's still absurd to me that somehow I'm about to be entering my last year of pharmacy school, like actual sit-down lecture part of school. I know God has a plan for me, for my future, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.